Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Doctor Interested podcast, where we explore topics related to health, medicine, and wellness. I'm your host, Areebah, and today we're diving into the topic the aging brain. And today we're talking about a topic that affects every single one of us the aging brain. Why does it matter? What's really happening up there as the years go by? This is segment 1, and we're going to lay the foundation before we move into interviews in later segments. Yes, you heard that right. We've lined up 3 fascinating conversations with people from different age groups to explore how the brain works across the lifespan. First things first, why should we even care about the aging brain? Well, here's the truth your brain is not some eternal, indestructible command center. It's more like a library. Over time, some of the pages fade, some books go missing, and occasionally a new book gets filed in the wrong section. The good news: the library doesn't close, it just, reorganizes a little. From the moment we're born, our brains start wiring themselves. Neurons firing, connections forming like an epic web of superhighways. But as we age, some of those highways close for repairs and traffic gets rerouted. This is completely normal. It's not all bad news either. Certain skills like vocabulary and emotional regulation actually improve with age. So, yes, you might forget your neighbor's name, but you'll be better at handling the fact that you forgot it. Why does this matter on a bigger scale? Because by 2050, the number of people aged 60 and older is expected to double worldwide, from 1 billion to 2 billion. That's a lot of brains doing a lot of aging. And that means health systems, caregivers, and even society at large need to adapt. Now, in the next segments of this podcast, we're going to hear directly from real people. A 10-year-old girl who claims to be an amazing artist, a 16-year-old professional swimmer and a friend of mine, and an absolutely amazing 48-year-old father who's my biggest supporter. These interviews will give us a human perspective on what science already knows, that the brain is a marvel at any age. All right, let's look at the science behind it all. Let's get a little nerdy. Welcome to the segment 2 of this podcast. What exactly is happening inside the aging brain? First, the hippocampus, our brain's memory champion, shrinks a bit as we age. Think of it like your favorite sweater after a few too many rounds in the dryer. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision making and planning. Over time, it doesn't vanish, but it does get a little less enthusiastic. Studies show that processing speed slows down as we age. Remember, when you could binge watch 3 seasons of a show and still remember every plot twist? Well, now you might need a recap episode. On the bright side, older adults tend to be better at seeing the bigger picture and making balanced judgments, so wisdom is real. Here's a fun stat. According to the World Health Organization, dementia affects about 55 million people worldwide, with nearly 10 million new cases every year. That sounds scary, but here's the hopeful part. Lifestyle factors can actually make a difference. Regular exercise, mental stimulation, and even social engagement help keep the brain healthier for longer. So yes, your grandma's weekly bingo night. That's neuroscience approved. And socially, the aging brain matters because memory and cognition shape identity. They shape relationships, jobs, independence, etc. This isn't just a medical issue, it's a human one. And as we live longer, it's a question every society has to answer. How do we care for aging minds without losing the wisdom they bring? In our next segment, those interviews I promised, they'll show you how the science we just discussed plays out in real life. That's it for segments 1 and 2 of today's episode. Stay tuned for the interviews. You don't want to miss them. Until then, keep your neurons firing and maybe give your hippocampus a little love today. Today, I had the opportunity to speak with our youngest interviewee, who is 10 years old. She preferred not to have her voice recorded, but here are the questions I asked her and her detailed responses to them. I started by asking her, "What did you eat for breakfast today?" She said she ate pasta. The pasta had lots of pepper and tasted like cheese and it smelled really good. Next, I started off by asking her, can you tell me something fun you did last week? She replied to it by saying Roblox videos are something fun she watched on the TV. It was talking about growing a garden. They were talking about the new beanstalk, and she was just talking about the new update that she was listening to on the video. Then I asked her the next question, which was, how do you remember where you put your favorite toy? She said she uses her brain power and the location of the toy comes up in her mind. After that, I asked, do you ever forget things? What kind of things? She said she just forgets to do her tasks. Genuine for kids to forget when distracted by their favorite things and play. Next, I asked her, what makes you happy or sad? She said eating food makes her happy, and when she loses something she's attached to, she feels sad, such as a toy. After that, it brought me to my next question, which was, what do you want to be when you grow up, and why? To that, she had an absolutely lovely answer. She claims that she wants to be an artist. She loves art. She does art 3 times a week, a new project each time. She said she saw YouTube artists and got inspired to follow their work while creating her own imaginations onto onto the canvas. She will be a great artist for sure. Next, I asked, if you had a superpower for your brain, what would it be? She said she wants to be able to read minds. She says she would like to know what people think of her. Finally, I asked her, what's something you can do now that you couldn't do when you were a baby? She claims that something she can do now is think deeply about things, use her imaginations, and think to retrieve information from her brain. As a baby, she didn't have that much knowledge or thinking power to do all this. Next, we will be speaking with our second interviewer, who is of 16 years of age, and she preferred to have her interview recorded. What's something new you've learned recently that really excites you?
Something that I recently learned that I'm really excited for is crocheting. I started learning it during the summer and I've gotten really good at it. So now I'm really excited to make like a plushie or something.
How do you usually remember things? Do you use reminders or do you just keep it all in your head?
I usually remember things by just like forcing it into my brain and just trying to remember it. It usually doesn't really work well because I forget or I mix things up, but most of the time it works.
Do you feel like your emotions are stronger now than when you were younger? How do you handle them?
I feel like when I was younger, my emotions were stronger. Actually, no, I feel like they're pretty much the same. It's just now I know how to control them better.
Has your way of thinking or making decisions changed in the last few years?
I think I've started thinking things through more instead of just going with my first instinct. I try to look at the bigger picture and make choices that line up with what I want for my future or long term.
When you're focused on something, what kinds of things distract you the most?
Something that distracts me would probably be either like my device or phone, or even like my own thoughts. I could be focused on doing some assignment or something, and then suddenly remember something random or think about like food or something. And if my phone is near me, there's no point in me trying to focus.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by information? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I 100% get overwhelmed with information. When there's too much work for me to do. I try to break it down into smaller chunks and focus on one thing at a time. Taking short breaks helps too. I like focusing on the smaller tasks that are easier to do first and then move on to the bigger ones.
What's something adults do or say that doesn't make sense to you?
Something that really annoys me is when adults act like being busy or being stressed all the time is a flex. Like, rest and balance should be normal, not something to feel guilty about.
Do you think your brain works faster or slower than when you were a kid?
I think it works faster in some ways, like I can connect and process more ideas better, but it also feels slower because I overthink more. Because when I was a kid, everything felt straightforward to me. You didn't have to consider other things. So, yeah.
Today, I had the opportunity to speak with our senior interviewee, who is 48 years old. He preferred not to have his voice recorded, but here are the questions I asked him and his detailed responses. I started by asking him, how has your memory changed since you were younger, if at all? He claims that he forgets 10% of the things he was supposed to do in a day. And he also claims that he can't remember details about his day, but he vaguely remembers what he did throughout the week. Lastly, he says that he only remembers 50% of the memories that he had made during his youth. Next, I asked, do you feel like your decision making has improved with age? How so? He claims that his experience has shaped him into a wise and intellectual person. He has made better decisions at this age than he has ever made in his teenage and childhood life. Then I asked, are there things you find harder to learn or pick up now? He claimed that it's hard for him to understand new languages and learn new memorization material. Mathematics takes him longer to solve as the concepts are always a bit harder to grasp. After that, I asked, have you noticed changes in your attention span or ability to concentrate? He claims that he can't focus that much and his attention span isn't great either because distracting thoughts may overcome his ability to stay focused easily. He often can drift into thoughts about life or about other things. Next, I asked him, what are some mental habits you've developed to stay sharp or organized? He says that he works toward listing down the tasks each day and mentally noting them every morning, but he claims he doesn't practice that many mental habits to stay organized, except for writing down things or setting reminders. He focuses on sleep and physical activity to keep him fresh and productive throughout the day as they help with brain functions. After that, we proceeded to the next question, where I asked, how do you feel your emotions or reactions have changed with age? He claims that feelings and reactions don't change, but the reaction to an action may come very quickly. Being emotional quickly is possible, or feeling an intense level of an emotion at this age feels normal. Which took us to our next question after that, which was, what's something you wish your younger self knew about how the brain ages? He replied to it by saying, hearing was a source of learning and easy to pick up things. When once he heard something in his younger self, he would remember it for a long time. But at the age of 48, he can't remember stuff for longer periods of time. In short, he would like to tell his younger self that long-lasting memory isn't long-term anymore. Finally, for the last question, I had asked, have you ever had a senior moment? What was that like? He says, senior moment happens less frequently for him when he forgets things by mistake and makes tiny mistakes in uncertainty. All right, everyone, as we wrap up today's episode on how the brain changes as we age, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. Our brains are incredible organs, powerful, adaptable, and complex. But just like the rest of our bodies, they go through changes over time. As we get older, It's natural for certain brain functions like memory, processing speed, or attention to slow down a bit. This happens because the brain's cells communicate a little less efficiently, and sometimes the connections between neurons become weaker. However, the amazing part is that the brain is still capable of learning, adapting, and forming new connections throughout our entire lives. That's what scientists call neuroplasticity. So, while aging might bring some challenges, it doesn't mean our brain power is lost. In fact, with the right care, we can support brain health and keep our minds sharp. Some simple but effective steps include staying physically active, eating a balanced diet rich in nutrients, getting enough sleep, and keeping your brain engaged with puzzles, reading, or learning new skills. Social connection and managing stress also play a huge role in maintaining a healthy brain. If you're curious to dive deeper into this topic, I encourage you to explore reputable sources like the National Institute on Aging, the Alzheimer's Association, or scientific journals that focus on neuroscience and cognitive health, which is what I also use to bring this amazing podcast together for you. There's so much fascinating research happening that can empower us all to take better care of our brains. But before we go, I want to invite you to share your thoughts and feedback on this episode. Your questions, experiences, and ideas really help shape this podcast and make it better for everyone. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for listening and showing your support. Make sure to subscribe and tune in to future episodes where we'll continue exploring the amazing world of neuroscience together, which I absolutely love, which is my favorite topic as well, neuroscience. Until next time, take care of your brain and keep curious.